Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. We're looking at the topic, emotional intelligence and social skills in the workplace. Our facilitator for tonight is Ijoma Edobo, and I would just like to read his profile so we get to know him even better. Ijoma is an award-winning human resource professional with over 13 years experience in business partnering, leadership development, employee experience, talent optimization, just to mention a few. He has a master's degree focused on human resource management from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He's a well-rounded professional who believes strongly that the rapidly changing work environment, one major contributor to business success is quality leadership and effective organizational culture. He has held various positions in different multinational organizations and currently serves as the Human Resource Business Partner at Grand Cereals Limited, a member of the UAC Group. He is an associate of the Tara Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria and is also pursuing relevant international certifications in HR. Outside of work, he enjoys playing table tennis as well as spending time with family. He also volunteers on different platforms where he shares knowledge and strives to learn from others. Speaking on the topic, emotional intelligence and social skills in the workplace. Welcome, Ijoma Edobo. You have the floor, my brother.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emi. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to appreciate the opportunity to do this. I don't take platforms for granted, so I'm very grateful for the platform that you have permitted me to use this evening. All right, so like Dr. Emi introduced, my name is Ijoma Edobo, and I'll be leading the conversation tonight. Of course, I expect it to be quite conversational. That means that to, as much as possible, share knowledge from our personal experiences. We'll be talking on emotional intelligence and social skills in the workplace. I'm sure that we have had relevant things related to this topic in our individual spaces. So it would be nice if we're able to, share knowledge together tonight. All right, so diving right into it, I'd like to set the scene by reading out this quote. It says, "Emotion is present in the workplace, everywhere and every day. Emotion is energy. The skill is to harness this energy and to use it in the best possible way to achieve group goals." All right, that's just the background I would like to create, just for all of us to appreciate and acknowledge the fact that emotion is present everywhere, including the workplace. So it is a skill that is required for us to build, and we use this skill to make everybody contribute towards group goals if all of us develop it correctly. All right, now let's go into some of the things that I hope we'll be able to cover in tonight's session. Please confirm I'm being heard and my slides are moving, please.
Yes, please.
Excellent, thank you very much. All right, so the objectives we hope to be able to cover tonight, the first one is we'll understand what emotional intelligence is and why it is important for personal effectiveness. Again, we'll try to understand how emotion impacts and influences behavior in the highly complex interaction between an individual and the work environment. Don't forget, the subject of emotional intelligence is very broad, but tonight we are going to be focusing on how it impacts social skills in the workplace, right? We also look at how we can control our emotions and adapt better to people's circumstances and situations. And then finally, hope that time permits us, we'll also be able to appreciate the role of social skills in our relationship at work, thereby inspiring each other towards developing high emotional intelligence that guarantee harmony in the work environment. So these are the things I hope that we'll be able to cover in tonight's session. So I crave your indulgence to please follow me and let's do this together. Right, now let's look at emotional intelligence as we move up the career ladder. I'd like you to please pay close attention to the graph that you are seeing on your screen. And I like to use the blue line, if you can see my screen. The blue line will represent technical skills. The red line will represent managerial skills, while this purple line will represent interpersonal skills. Now, on the vertical axis, we have the level of importance, while on the horizontal axis, we are looking at different stages that career professionals will be from start to perhaps the climax of their career. Now, what this graph is showing us is that if you look at technical skills, for instance, which we agreed we will use the blue line to represent, you see that it is at the highest level at the operational stage of one's career. As you start your career as an operational, which is most likely a managed self role, you discover that what you will need to thrive is high level of what I can call operational skills or technical competency. If, for instance, you're a mechanical engineer, the rate at which you are able to work with tools, spanners, screwdrivers, and the rest, that is what to a large extent to determine your success at that level as an operational. Now, at this level also, you see that both managerial skills and interpersonal skills are at their lowest level. It is not as if they are not important, but that is not what your success at an operational level depends on. But instead, you need to have high level of technical competency, which we have said that this line represents. Now you move to the professional stage of your career as you continue to grow. You discover that the use of or the importance of technical skills begins to reduce, begins to drop. And that is the same time where both managerial skills and interpersonal skills begin to climb up. So what it means is you need higher levels of managerial skills where you begin to look at things like planning, organizing, directing, and all of that. You know, they begin to grow up as you grow as a professional. From the operational stage to the professional level, where you assume those roles like supervisor, you know, team lead, and all of that. And then you go to the next stage of your career, which is management level. That is where this red line, which represents managerial skills, that is where it climaxes, because you need high level of management skills to actually operate at managerial levels, where you now begin to manage other people in your team. And then, of course, interpersonal skills goes up as well, but reaches the highest level at the executive stage, where we have senior leaders, leadership of the business, HODs, MDs, directors, and the rest. So you discover that while interpersonal skills and managerial skills are quite little that is required for you to succeed at the operational and professional level, as you become a manager and as you begin to lead functions and lead business entities, you need very high levels of interpersonal skills. That is what emotional intelligence does for us. Now, in the context of our tonight's discussion, we are looking at emotional intelligence and social skills in the workplace. So you will agree with me that for somebody who has high level of interpersonal skills, you know, somebody who is able to appreciate his environment and is able to lead people to bring out the best in them, at the executive, at the management level and executive level is where you need these skills the most. That is what will actually determine your success. All right, let's make progress. One minute. Look like my slide is not moving again. Let me do that. So let's progress. What is emotional intelligence? That would be a good question to ask, just so we are all at home with it. I put two definitions by Daniel Goleman, who is considered the father of emotional intelligence. The work he released some time ago was what laid the foundation for what we know as emotional intelligence today. So according to him, emotional intelligence refers to the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions well in ourselves and in our relationship. Again, the same Daniel Goleman said that emotional intelligence is learning to manage our emotions rather than letting them control us. In my own words, I say that emotional intelligence, simply put, refers to the ability to master our individualities, as well as using this mastery to drive personal and workplace harmony and productivity. Now, again, I said it is a skill, therefore it can be learned. What it means is that on the basis of the knowledge that you can acquire, you can actually move your EI quotient from low to high. we'll get to a point in this presentation where we'll have to participate, and then we'll be able to, look at some things and speak to whether they are low or high emotional intelligence. But for now, let's make progress. Now, this, you can call this the meat of today's session. If there's anything I would like you to take away from today's session, this is where it is. So I'd like you to pay close attention. Now, the 4 dimensions of emotional intelligence I would like us to consider include 1, self-awareness, which I say is the ability to read one's emotions and recognize their impact while using gut feelings to guide decisions. This is about you, right? And then the next one is self-management, or what some people call self-regulation. This is the ability to control one's emotions and impulses, as well as adapt to changing circumstances. The 3rd dimension, or the 3rd component of EI, is called social awareness, the ability to sense, understand, and react to others' emotions while comprehending social networks. So it's about acknowledging the fact that while you exist, there are other people or other circumstances in your environment which you must recognize in doing whatever you do. And then, of course, the last part is relationship management, which is the ability to inspire, influence, and develop others while managing conflict. Now, we are going to look at these dimensions one after the other briefly. And then, because of the way the subject of today's discussion is skewed, which is social skills in the workplace, I'd like us to pay some more emphasis around conflict management or conflict resolution, which is under relationship management. That will take some effort from us by the time we get to that level. All right, now let's look at self-awareness. As far as self-awareness is concerned, there's a saying that says, man, know thyself. Yeah, thyself. A lot of us are not familiar with what it is that happens within us. We are not aware of what triggers us. We don't know the special things about us, and that is why we can fall into any kind of situation without being able to, control it, because we've not mastered who we are and how we react, how we tend to react under certain circumstances. So that's why I said, for purposes of self-awareness, it is good that, 1, we conduct a thorough personal SWOT analysis. SWOT means strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So understand yourself inside out, know the things that trigger you and how you tend to respond under certain circumstances, and that is how you'll be able to, put them under control instead of, saying that they control you. Again, we said, understand your strengths and use them correctly. Again, recognize your weakness and work on them. Try to develop yourself, try to improve from what you have identified as being a weakness on your part, so that you will become a better person. The quality of our interaction with people is actually a function of what we have known and mastered and put under control as far as ourselves is concerned. And then, of course, I said, finally, be deliberate about building a healthy self-esteem. It's actually on the basis of your acceptance of who you are, especially the ones that are positive, and your deliberate effort to work on the ones that are negative. That is what we see that you come off, as being the way you are supposed to come up in the midst of other people. All right, so conduct a good SWOT analysis about yourself. That is how to know, have a good grasp of your self-awareness. Now I'll go to the next one, where I said emotional red flags and breakdowns. As part of understanding yourself, for instance, those of us who are career professionals, what are your likely responses or reactions under certain circumstances? What have you identified as the things that you tend to do, especially when you are provoked? You see some people, fire email letter bombs. Some people begin to withdraw and isolate themselves. Some people hold grudges, begin to give off passive or aggressive behavior. Some people have angry tirades, the use of sarcasm and inappropriate humor, including door slamming. So try to check what is it that makes you move from 0 to 100. As long as you're able to master those things, you'll be able to put them under control. So the first element, or the first component or dimension of emotional intelligence on the basis of what we are discussing this night is self-awareness, which we have said is very important, that we get to know what triggers us and how we respond under certain circumstances. Now let's summarize self-awareness. We said that self-awareness is the ability to accurately perceive your own emotions, stay aware of your emotions as they happen, if you need to journal, keep a record of how you reacted under certain circumstances. That is how, when it happens again, if you are not impressed about how you treated a matter previously, you'll be able to put some control to it the next time that kind of a situation arises or something similar. Keep on top of how you tend to respond to specific situations and circumstances. We've said it before. Now, in closing this self-awareness subtopic, I'd like to quote Thomas Carlyle, who said that the greatest of faults is to be conscious of none. I'll take that one more time. The greatest of faults is to be conscious of none. So as an individual, be very mindful of what your faults are so that you'll be able to put them under control. That's how we put up to, at this point, self-awareness. Now let's go into self-regulation. I said it is the ability to effectively manage one's impulsive feelings and emotions, as well as to restrain from negative actions even when one is provoked. You see, it is not a crime for one to be provoked. It's actually about how we respond or react to provocation. That is what speaks to whether we have good self-management or not. Now, the capacity to regulate one's thoughts, actions, and behaviors to suit the requirements of shared objectives. You see that in an environment where you are not the only one, you don't have the liberty to just, blow up the emotional gasket. You need to put yourself under control because the person sitting right next to you has a right to exist in that environment. Therefore, you need to put yourself under control. Self-management speaks to the control that emanates from a robust or rich personality. We talked about self-esteem not long. You must come from a background where you are confident. You must come from a background where you have good self-esteem about yourself. That is how you'll be able to, put yourself under control when you know that whatever you would have done is not appropriate for a public environment. Now, this has to be learned over time. That's why we are doing what we are doing tonight. It is not automatic. On the basis of watching people, you too can improve and try to control yourself. Very important. All right, so we'll pack that there as well. Summarize, I said, watch out for your triggers and stay conscious of them. Discipline your feelings and tame your impulses. Try and put yourself under control. Always remember, it goes beyond me and beyond now. Again, there is this quote by this anonymous author. He said, the first and best victory is to conquer self. The first and the best victory is to conquer self. All right. Can you please confirm that I'm still being heard? I'd like somebody to let me know if we're still together, please. All right. Thank you very much, Doctor. Now, the third component of emotional intelligence will be social awareness. And I said it is the ability to sense, understand, and respond correctly to others' emotions while comprehending social networks. The environment we operate in, whether at work or even outside of work, has other people who have a right to stay in that environment and also express themselves. So you must be conscious of the fact that you are not living in isolation. You must be conscious of the fact that the things that please you may not please everybody. So you must put into consideration how what you are saying or doing impacts the environment where you have found yourself. You see, that something is pleasing to you does not mean that it has to be acceptable. There are different things that make it a word of everybody. We are all unique in our own rights. So that something is acceptable to you, before you do it in a public environment, you must be sure that that thing has also taken into consideration what is important to the other persons or the other people who are in that environment. So I said social awareness within the context of EI refers to the ability to accurately perceive and understand the emotions of others. Before we talked about you, now you must extend it to other people who are in the environment where you are operating, as well as the social dynamics in a situation, essentially allowing you to read the room and respond appropriately based on how others are feeling. I said it before that it doesn't have to be just the way you are feeling. You must put into consideration what this thing means or how it appears to other people who are sharing this environment with me. Now, it involves empathy and the capacity to take another person's perspective to navigate interactions effectively. empathy is very key. The subject of emotional intelligence cannot be complete without empathy. What it means is putting yourself in somebody else's shoe. I usually say that you are right does not mean I am wrong. It depends on our perspective. So we must be willing to look at issues from the other person's perspective. And the simplest example that I usually use to demonstrate this is when I sit the way I sit now and I write 6. The person sitting opposite me will see it as 9. The person is not wrong. The person is only seeing it from the angle that he or she is sitting. Now, the truth of the matter is that when I come to that side, I will also see it as 9. When the person comes to where I am, the person will also see it as 6. So empathy means that you take the person's place in how the person is seeing it. Of course, it does not mean that we should leave the argument unsettled or unresolved, but you must be willing to look at it from the lens of other people. That is how you are demonstrating social awareness. All right, now the last part before we start going into the exercise that I would like us to take is relationship management. What is relationship management? The ability to inspire, influence, and develop others while managing conflict. Relationship management domain contains competencies that have the most direct effect on interactions with other people. Yes, we have looked at a bit of it from the social awareness part, but relationship management takes a deeper dive into how you have to manage the relationship between you and other people, especially in the workplace, since that is what we are basically discussing. And the 3 major elements I would like to draw out or hatch on, as far as relationship management is concerned, will be inspirational leadership, where people believe in you on the basis of what they know you can do. Of course, there is influence, your ability to change people's perspective based on strong conviction. And then, of course, conflict management. That will take some effort from us because we are discussing social skills in the workplace. If you must be somebody of high EI, especially relating to relationship or interpersonal management, you must be good at managing conflict. Otherwise, things will keep happening in the wrong direction as far as the relationship between you and people is concerned, and you don't even know how and why it is happening. So it is important that we are able to understand the basics of conflict management if we must be seen as being high on emotional intelligence. Now, that's why I want us to take a further look at conflict management. And I said, conflict management is the ability to handle difficult individuals, groups of people, or tense situations with diplomacy and tact. This competency entails finding the best solution to a given problem or disagreement. And I went ahead to list some of the causes of conflict: poor communication, personality differences, gender issues, cultural differences, leadership or the absence of it, and of course, scarcity of relationships. All of these can lead to conflict, but your ability to manage those conflicts is what will determine whether you are good at relationship management or not. Now, what is it that we need to know concerning conflict management? There is this graph here that has you on the vertical axis and then I on the horizontal axis. Now, the points we are making with this slide is that the best way to manage conflict is when we arrive at a win-win situation. Win-win situation does not mean that, oh, everything I've said, you must accept it the way it is. Or you are the one who has won, I am the one who has lost. It actually means our ability, we talked about influence, we talked about inspirational leadership. If you are the one who is right, your ability to influence the other person to see it from your perspective is what has determined whether you have both won or one person has lost. If I win and you lose, we have not managed the conflict very well, because instead we have pushed the argument or the confrontation to a later date. If we both lose, that one is even worse. It means that both of us, none of us is high on emotional intelligence. If I win and you lose, of course, that's not the best way to manage conflict. So the best way to manage conflict is that situation where we arrive at a win-win situation. All right. So I'm able to show you my point, from where I'm sitting, and then you are able to understand it from where you are sitting as well. That is how we arrive at a win-win situation. Now, to begin to wrap up, conflict resolution styles, depending on the circumstance. I've listed avoiding style, competing style, accommodating style, compromising, and then, of course, collaborating. And for me, collaboration is the best style, or the one that gives the best results, especially in a work environment. But if we must look at, the details of some other conflict resolution styles, avoiding style, for instance, talks about avoiding the confrontation or conflict altogether. Many times, this only pushes the conflict to a later date. I mentioned that earlier. It can be appropriate when victory is impossible. When it is not possible to, arrive at total victory for one side, so that it doesn't become a zero-sum game. Discover that you can decide, okay, you know what? Let's park this argument today. We can come back to it much later. Competing style. You have to be firm, and this means that you are firm and uncooperative. It addresses the conflict directly and bluntly. It is good for people who operate from a higher place of power. In the work environment, there are people who it doesn't make sense to win their argument. So you just have to avoid it. Otherwise you'll be seen as being competing. Accommodating style also talks about resolving conflicts by giving in to the opposing parts. It involves willingness to meet the needs of others at the expense of the person's own need. It is not assertive, but it is cooperative. You give ground, you concede, okay? It is more appropriate when positive decision is more important to the other party. If you know that allowing this person to win this thing is important, it's more important to him, then of course, you can just decide to accommodate that. All right. Compromising style, before we talk about collaborating, which I said is usually the better way out. Compromising talks about resolving conflicts by partially satisfying everyone. So it means that one party is actually conceding, is giving ground for the other. Parties are expected to give up something. You cannot just win this argument today. Compromise is useful when the cost of conflict is higher than the cost of losing ground. And I've had to put that in bold letters. Compromise is useful when the cost of, if this argument is not going to, take us anywhere, you just decide to compromise, and then that's how you get out of it. This can foster short-term productivity, but it rarely completely solves the underlying problems. Light has gone off again. Okay, it's back now. Collaborating style, which is the final one, which I said is, for me, the most appropriate, because everybody has to be, to cooperate in the work environment. We resolve conflicts by meeting the needs of everyone as much as possible. It is appropriate when you need to bring together a variety of viewpoints to get the best solution. Everybody contributes, and then at the end of the day, that's what we call the wisdom of the crowd. On the basis of superior argument, you discover that the person who ordinarily looks like he's losing is ready to say, oh, now I see it from your viewpoint, so I accept. That's what I mean by win-win situation. So everybody is cooperating. It is appropriate when there have been previous conflicts in the group, or when the situation is too important for a simple trade-off. You don't want to repeat a conflict situation that ultimately will not take us anywhere. Implementing this style can often be time-consuming, but it leads to more effective and sustainable outcomes if it is done correctly. All right. So as we begin to wrap up and get close to where I want us to do some exercises, that exercise, Dr. Liami, will help me coordinate it. Perhaps we'll take responses from the chat box, and then you help us say what is going on in the room. Emotional intelligence summarized. So I come back to that place where the 4 cardinal things that we need to do as far as AI is concerned. 1, understand yourself, understand who you are and what is important to you. Having had that understanding, learn to adapt and control your feelings. Put your feelings under control. Put the impulses that come to your head under control. Recognize and accommodate other people in your environment. Remember, it is not just about you. Your colleagues or your peers have a right to share the environment much the same way you also have a right to share it. And then finally, monitor how well you apply your skills to foster effective relationship. Be deliberate about ensuring that your interaction with people leaves them inspired, leaves them energized. A lot of people see themselves yelling or shouting or doing the wrong things without knowing how and why. So the call for us tonight is to be intentional about growing our conflict resolution styles. is about developing our, interpersonal relationships that approach to issues, because that is what ultimately will determine how far we go. At the higher levels of your career, you discover that, like we mentioned earlier when we're looking at that graph, you are not just doing the manual job, but you are leading people. You are managing people who are getting the job done. So it's about your ability to bring out the best in them. That is what determines your success at that higher level. All right. Okay. So there are some cards that I'm going to show here. We have two buckets here. Bucket A is labeled low emotional intelligence, while bucket B is labeled high emotional intelligence. Now, by the time I show these cards, you will now tell me whether, in your opinion, Dr. Oluyemi, please help me coordinate, and because we may not be able to take live responses, maybe they can do that on the chat room. So we have buckets. One is low emotional intelligence, the other one is high emotional intelligence. Low emotional intelligence is represented by bucket A, while high EI is represented by bucket B. So, A, you react sternly to every offense. Does that fall under bucket A or bucket B? Okay, we move on. You can drop your comments in the chat box. B, you have difficulty asserting yourself. You have difficulty asserting yourself. Should this come under bucket A, low emotional intelligence, or bucket B, high emotional intelligence? C, you don't let go of mistakes. What does this show about you? Low or high EI? D, you hold grudges. All right. I want to be sure that responses are coming on the chat box because I can't see it myself. All right. E, you don't get angry at all. Does that fall under bucket A or B? F, benefit from criticism. What does that say about you? Low or high? All right, let's make progress. G, you praise others. You learn how to appreciate people. You know how to, make them feel good on the basis of maybe good work done or something. What does that say about you? Excellent. Now you also know how to apologize. What does it say about you? All right, we're making progress. I, you forgive and you forget. Does this show that you have low emotional intelligence or high emotional intelligence? Well, we'll find out. J, you are often not sure what you feel. You are not sure how you feel. You don't know what is happening and why it is happening. You just know that this is what you are feeling like. All right, what does that say about you, A or B? A, you offend people and you don't know why. You just come across as somebody who is not liked or who is not likable. You don't know how it happens. You don't know why it happens. And then the final one is you keep your commitment. Your word is your bond. You say it and you do it. You are trusted to deliver on what you have committed to. Does it show that you have high EI or low EI? All right. Now, for whatever we may have chosen, this is what the real answers are. And it is important that we look at it. I think the ones that are really controversial, for me, I would say card E, which is that you don't get angry. So clearly that falls under low emotional intelligence. It's not about not being angry. It's about being angry, but putting your anger under control, not letting your anger control you, right? Even the Holy Book says, be angry, but sin not. So offense will always come, anger will always come, provocative circumstances will always show up, but what do you do with it? How do you react? How do you respond? Does it leave you or other people empowered or demoralized? So you must be in control of your emotions, in control of your happiness, joy, pleasure. All of these are, emotions. You must put them under control. You will not, on the basis of either of these, any of these emotions, do something wrong either to yourself or to others. Because if that happens, clearly what it means is that you have very low emotional intelligence. High emotional intelligence, you have cards F, G, H, I, and L. You benefit from criticism. You know how to praise others when they do good, and you forget. It's not about tomorrow you bring it up again that, oh, that's how you did it in the other day. That does not really show that you moved on, right? And then you keep your commitment. People must trust you based on what they know that you can do, and you have said exactly what you can do. Now, as we begin to wrap up business environment, you see that leads to performance shooting up. Helps you to enhance your performance, productive person. It makes you somebody who for the intelligence skills. And because if we do that, and we have a lot of us who are emotionally intelligent, you discover that there will be high engagement and high productivity. That ultimately leads to business performance being very, very, fine. So individual emotional intelligence leads to individual productivity. When we have so many people who are emotionally intelligent, it means that there will be engagement in the organization. And when a lot of people are engaged, you discover that the organizational performance will naturally shoot up. Now, my final thoughts as we wrap up this session tonight, using emotions to enhance our relationship is a skill that we can learn. And like I said, the 4 very important aspects that we need to, be very mindful and conscious of and intentionally pursue is, one is self-awareness, the other one is self-regulation or self-management, the next one is social awareness, and then finally, interpersonal skills, or what we call relationship management. These are the 4 domains of EI, and as career professionals, we need to master all of them and intentionally grow them as we move on. We have considered the 4 main dimensions of emotional intelligence tonight. These dimensions, when internalized and practiced deliberately, can be trusted to enhance our output and effectiveness in the business of people management. In fact, wherever we find ourselves, whether we are managing people or not, it is necessary for us to develop high EI skills, because that is what will lead to career success for all of us who are career professionals. And then finally, I said, as a career professional, your EI level, as well as your demonstration of good interpersonal skills, which was our focus for today's webinar, has a direct impact on your performance and ultimately your success in and out of the workplace. So that is how I say thank you very much for listening to me. And it's back to you, Dr. Oluyemi. Is Dr. Oluyemi on the call, please? All right. It appears he's also having network issues. So Liam, if you are back, I'm done with the presentation, and it's over to you, sir.
You can take the question and answer. My network is fluctuating, please. Or any of the admins on.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. All right. So if there are questions, it would be a good time for us to take them now. Let me see if I can find any from the. Meanwhile, my LinkedIn profile is there in case you want to connect with me, Ijoma Edobo. So you can look me up on LinkedIn and then we can connect. Is there a question? Feel free to also unmute if you want to, speak into the meeting, and then you can ask questions and then we can share. Okay, I want to assume that the silence means that there are no questions. I would also appreciate if there's anybody who wants to share any personal experience, from your place of work, from wherever. I'm seeing is where is the link. It's not. I just called my name. I just mentioned my name, so you can look me up on LinkedIn. Ijoma Edubo ACIPM. Ijoma Edubo ACIPM. That's my LinkedIn profile, so you can connect with me, please. If there are hands that are up, okay. So I see a mobile. Please feel free to unmute, and then let's get your contribution or question, please. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you ever so much, Mr. Ijoma, for that very insightful presentation, taking us through all the different stages and all the things that matter when we're talking about, excuse me, AI. I've got a bit of a cough, that's why I didn't want to talk before. I just wanted to add, it's just a contribution because I'm a life coach and I also practice a bit of NLP. And you remember when you talked about us knowing ourselves, it reminds me of the Johari's window, if anybody's heard about the Johari's window. The Johari's window is just an illustration to say that there's a part of us that everybody knows, both us and the people outside. There's a part of us that only the people outside know, we're not aware of. There's a part of us that only us know, the people outside don't know. Now, there's a final part of us that we ourselves don't even know. And like our presenter said, we get to know about ourselves situationally, circumstantially. When things happen to us, when a circumstance arises, when a situation arises, the way we react, the way we behave, the way our emotions are, allows us to know ourselves the more. And then puts things in place to deal with those situations appropriately. So I just want us to go away knowing that irrespective of how prepared you are, there are certain times that things would happen to you because we don't know ourselves in its entirety. We only know ourselves in part from experiences, from the things that we've reacted to, from the things that we've been exposed to, and all of that. So sometimes things will happen to you and it will totally take you by surprise, some of your reaction or inaction. And so we need to also be prepared for such situations and learn how to deal with unforeseen situations. So you have to then cluster yourself to the different emotions or situations. So if it's an anger situation, you must have prepared yourself that this level of anger has never happened to me before, but because I've dealt with some other anger issues, this is sort of the emotion or the reaction that should kick in. Let me use it. So if it's about you counting 1 to 10 or counting, 10 to 0, or if it's about you stepping out of that situation, going somewhere else just to calm down, and ensuring that you don't do all the habits, slam the door, bang this, do that. Just let that come to play. Use that as your buffer. So use your past emotional counter to deal with any new or unforeseen emotions that might come up. Because like I said, you can never know yourself in full. You only know yourself in part. As much as things are happening, you either keep a journal or you make a mental note. This is how I behaved when this happened to me. Next time, I must know how to react to it. And it's not just about negative things. It also applies for positive things. So I thought I should just share that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir. Thank you so much. That's a very insightful contribution. We appreciate it. I mean, we can't say it, we can't exhaust it, okay? The truth is there are so many strategies that we can use to put ourselves under control, put ourselves under check, because like we said, it goes beyond us, it goes beyond now, right? The way you feel now, feelings are fickle, they will fade away. If something different happens, you discover that, you regret what you did when you were in that mood. So it is better that we kind of, go into the future and check what, if we look back and see how we reacted under certain circumstances, what we will be proud of, not what we will not be proud of, right? There are so many strategies. You can take a walk, you can count 1 to 10. I even tell people, especially for those of us who are career professionals, somebody sends a mail to you and you feel like you want to just bang back. The truth of the matter is that it's not about bottling the emotions either. It's about knowing how to release it, provided it does not hurt the person that it is going to. And on one occasion, I had to counsel somebody. I said, look, I see the way you feel. I know your mood, your emotion right now. So whatever it is that you want to, write in response to this mail that you received that was offensive, type it. Everything, just bring it. Your father, your mother, type it there. Don't send it. Get up from your seat, go round, take some breeze, play music, drink water, come back to your seat. I promise you, you will start editing that in one after the other until there is nothing offensive to send. That can be another strategy. So thank you very much for that contribution, Ma. We appreciate. I see something here. Somebody says, to what extent does age factor and religious convictions impact on emotional intelligence? Okay, so for me, I do not think that emotional intelligence is about age. As a matter of fact, there are people who are younger who, for instance, have started developing their EI skills from young age that will do better than people who are old. Meanwhile, they've not mastered anything about themselves, about their environment, about building quality relationships, right? So for me, it's not about age. For instance, the session we're having tonight is intended to add something to what you used to know. So what it means is that whether you are age 40, whether you are 20, whether you are 60, if you start consuming things like this and then you make up your mind to deliberately pursue them, growing yourself intentionally, I promise you, it doesn't have to do with whether you are young. You will be able to master it. Is it the oldest man that is at the highest level in your organization? The answer is no. So it is not actually about age. It's about what you can achieve as far as managing people is concerned. I think that would be my response. I don't know if that has satisfied you.
Mercy wants to speak. Mercy, you can speak.
Okay, please go ahead, Mercy.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mercy.
Thank you very much for the insightful information, the lectures, and all of that. I want to ask a question. So I want to really know if that was a low EI or it was an average one. It was something that happened at my office. I am an admin and HR in an oil servicing company. And then I just got there a year ago, some months ago, getting to a year now. But the people there, most of them are not, education to some extent gives somebody a kind of reasoning. There are some things that's the 4 walls of the university will help somebody know or don't know. So but here where I find myself, most of them don't know and don't just want to know. And then they keep making lots of mistakes. And for myself, the MD sees it like I am almost like okay, you're the only person, please come and change this. I know it's not possible because it's possible to some extent, but you don't expect that to happen immediately because I'm working with a lot of people coming from different backgrounds and they are already having same mindset from the beginning. Even an educated person comes there and gets to mix up unknowingly because this is what it is and it happens like this here. So I'm asking this question pertaining what happened recently. I addressed the staffs, and then when I was walking back to my office, lots of words were said. I was hearing, it was so clear. And then the same persons came to me for signatures, and most of them were even on probation. So out of that mind, I usually, no matter how angry I am, I don't abuse people. But I was like, this thing you did, is it right? Is it proper? And I just spoke, but I know I did not abuse the person, but my voice was higher than usual, like they know me, because they know that HR doesn't shout and all of that. So I spoke, and then when I finished signing, she wanted to speak. And this is someone that has nonchalant attitude, I've observed her severally. So she wanted to speak. I said, please leave my office. That was the word I used, please leave my office. And she left. Recently, I came to hear that she was crying, and she was crying everywhere, and people came, they were asking her. She said me the way I spoke to her, she didn't like it. So I was just surprised that, really. So at some point I felt so bad for myself. So even today, as this lectures came up, I said, okay, let me quickly ask this question, because at least with the knowledge in the room here, they can be able to tell me if I have low or high self-intelligence in that situation. How can I help myself in future? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much for sharing that experience. I'm sure there will be other contributions, but let me just put this forward in response to your question. I think that we talked about different styles of resolving conflicts. We talked about avoiding, we talked about collaboration, we talked about competing, we talked about compromising, right? So for me, especially now that you have seen the outcome of that simple statements that you made, please leave my office, you see that the thing has now not been resolved. Instead, it has even gone to cause other feelings, than that you are getting it now from others. So I think that a lot of people, the person who is high on emotional intelligence has different strategies to resolve issues that will even convince the person who is behaving, who has demonstrated low EI, that there is something about this person that I need to follow. There's an example that I see that I like, and I would need to build myself, about. We talked about inspirational leadership. We talked about influence. So I do not know if, somebody else is going to answer more directly whether it is EI, whether it is low or high. But for me, I feel that it is about how we make people feel after they have had that interaction, engagement with us. So that next time, there's no condemnation. That's why we are here. We are all learning. There's nobody who is a master at it. All of us are developing our skills. But it's about the intentionality, with which we pursue it, so that if this situation has happened now and this is the response, if you feel that you are not very satisfied with the, what came out of it, what it means is that there is an opportunity to do it even better next time. So I see Omoba's hand raised again. So maybe you want to speak to that as well.
Thank you, sir. And I don't intend to take over the floor from you as our facilitator today. Yeah, but it's about trying to share knowledge and pulling each other's hands up. I just wanted to chip in that having a high emotional intelligence does not remove the fact that you don't have things that will bother you. You won't have something that you can be angry. You can be. It doesn't shield you from all of those things. It only means that you are more prepared and more intentional, like Ijoma said, on how you respond. So don't go feeling bad that, oh, you got angry. Yes, you can get angry. You're a human being first and foremost. And emotional intelligence is built up upon. You cannot have everything in one day. It's almost as if you go from, you become matured with it. You understand? So it's something that it grows. The more you practice it, the more you put in the different kind of angles to dealing with situations, the more you learn from it, the more you grow with it. And then you get to a place where, even when you're angry, nobody would know. So it's something that you work on all the time. So please don't beat yourself up that, oh, you have low emotional intelligence just because you got angry. You have more low, EI because, you responded in a particular kind of way. Just know that it is something that would continue to happen. And the more you deal with situations, the better you get at it, and the more you'll be able to apply yourself appropriately. I just thought I should let you know that, or anybody else there that is feeling that, oh, does that mean you have low, intelligent EI or you have high EI? And if you're there, thinking, oh, you handle every situation, okay, there's no problem. Don't go thinking that you have high EI, because some people that are socialites, that are very exuberant, people will think that they have very high EIs. But that's just one aspect of their lives that you're seeing. If you remember what Ijoma was telling us about, social intelligence, some people have academic intelligence, some people. So your intelligence are, shared among different kinds of emotions. And somehow you might be able to exhibit a particular kind of emotion, EI, in a particular lifestyle. Maybe your social lifestyle or your academia or something, and you might not be able to apply it in another type of, emotions that would come to play. So we all need to just find a way of balancing it out in all of the things that we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma. Thanks. I see Chineye Akwono. I also see Shegun. Let's take Chineye first, please.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. It was quite an insightful one. Okay, my question is more of practical. What happens? I don't say happen, but happens in my office. So I came in as an HR officer, and I also report directly to the founders of my company. But then again, there is an operations manager, operations lady, who used to be in the role, but somehow they needed an HR. So she was moved to operations. But I keep getting this feedback every time from her. Maybe she's always requesting for an employee document. Before now, she even had access to the mail, but I had to change it and all of that. But most times when she requests and I tell her no, she can't have access to it, I see her going back to report to the GM. And of course, the GM will call me and I'll explain that HR and operations are not the same thing. Except it's HR operations, I can understand, but HR and operations are not the same thing. But of course, he keeps saying that there's a place we handshake. I say I understand. Not like I can't work with her, but the way she's going around, at some point, she has even had to raise her voice, and it looks as if there's a problem or between us and all of that. So I keep reiterating it to them. Sometimes I even relate with her freely, but it's looking as if I'm weak. Maybe I cannot do anything or something, but she just does some very, very funny things. Sometimes she can come to my office and request for something. Sometimes she even wants to just do it by herself. But based on how I just relate her, sometimes I just be calm and she just talks and then she leaves. But I want to know how best to just be able to manage her. Because recently now I want to get a core member to work with me. And then she was like, oh, please, my core member will be working with her. I said, well, let's see how it goes. But in my head, I'm like, no, it can't happen because, it's HR, it's not operation. So not to say too many stories, just to know how best to handle it so that I can also have a high EA. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. That's a beautiful one. Okay, so please, Omoba, would you want to respond to that as well? I think you will have some contributions that will be very valuable to our sister.
Okay, thank you for ceding the floor for me. Sorry, I didn't quite get your name. I like to call people by their name. I do apologize.
Chineye is my name, ma'am. Chineye, yes.
Now, Chineye, you see what's happening is that this person that has moved on still feels they have, an inroach into HR. And so what you need to do is not to keep avoiding each other. There has to be a meeting where you would be able to clearly state under the HR terms where your job roles are and what your job roles are and where his or hers lies, so that you don't keep crisscrossing. Because if you don't do that, you would always be going back and forth with each other. He or she trying to say that, they still have, rights to get into the HR space, and you trying as much as possible to put up a very high emotional intelligence to deal with it. And at some point, there's going to be a big clash. And so as it's brewing, you really need to either call the manager or the GM so that you can have this tripartite meeting and really be able to go back to what Ijeoma was training us about, conflict management. Clearly, there's a conflict. There's a conflict of interest, conflict of jurisdiction, you understand, conflict of, positions and all of that. So there has to be that conflict management. And when you manage that conflict by talking about it, you will then arrive at a win-win situation. Having high emotional intelligence doesn't mean you have to shy away from taking the bull by the horn. It is the things that you do to achieve that, how you do it, the words that you speak, the way that you mediate it, the way that you go about it, that will determine how well you can whip up your emotional intelligence. I hope I'm making sense. So it's a conflict right now, and it has to be resolved through conflict management. Everybody laying their cards on the table and having a win-win situation. Even if it means coming up with a document, a policy document that will guide you through how you interact with each other. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm happy that has come even before I had to make my own, give my own response as well. The truth is there is a situation that requires you guys to sit and talk. It's not about beating yourself up. It's not about avoiding, or not accepting the fact that there is an issue that requires, a meeting. And the truth is the way and manner in which you approach it will determine, one, whether you have a listening ear or whether they will even accept to have a discussion with you and accept perhaps the content of that conversation as well. So there's a lot that lies on your shoulder to do, but I assure you that it is a very winnable battle. As HR professionals, I don't know if you're an HR professional, but there's a lot that the business relies on us to show the way about, because that's actually what our job role is. We need to take ownership of situations and then make people trust and believe in us such that they are able to go the line that we show them, which is the direction that the business will enjoy. All right, I see there are a number of hands up still. Okay, so Chineye, I think if you are done with your question, you might need to lower your hand, or you want to say something again?
Thank you, sir.
Otherwise,
no, thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so I see Shegun's hand is up. Shegun, would you want to ask your question or make your contributions? Dr. Lemi, I hope we are still in time.
Yes, we are.
Okay, that's fine. So Shegun, we want to unmute and speak now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ijoma, for that wonderful presentation. And I also appreciate the Omoba's contribution, because the Chineye's question and Omoba's response to the question actually attended to a part of the question I actually wanted to raise here, which is the latent stage of conflict circle. What we are made to understood about stages in conflict or conflict itself, it's not when the outbursts come out. When there is outbursts, that's when the conflict actually started. It starts from the latent stage, which is so much difficult for people to pay attention to, or difficult for people to identify at that stage. At the stage of when you are trying to manage it, keep it to yourself, it doesn't really matter. It's just little. By the time the outburst will come, it will now become something else. Like, okay, maybe someone just stepped on your toes, and the next thing is to slap the person. But it's not all about stepping on the toes. It's about what has been piling up in the past that aggravated that reaction. And people around will be wondering that what happened, not knowing all of those things that has compiled in the past. So I appreciate the response Omoba gave to that emotional intelligence. I actually wanted to ask that emotional intelligence, is it synonymous to shying away from the latent stage of conflict circle? And also, I also wanted to bring this to perspective that emotional intelligence, latent stage of conflict, how can we identify it from the initial stage? How can we identify the latent stage of conflict circle from the inception? And as HR professional, how can we address them? This one happened to Chineye, the HR. But now if it's happening between staff, how can HR identify it, and how can we address it? Because it may, when you go to address something like that, it may be the result of, did anybody report any matter to you? But the conflict is building up already. So as HR professional, how can we address to something like that, a conflict at the latent stage of it? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. And then as well, the last part where you also had to ask your question. I think the truth of the matter is that to a large extent, of course, our the various stages of emotional intelligence where we are as individuals, plus what I can call the culture of the organization. You know, there are places where you are at liberty to speak. They have an open and transparent, culture that will aid people who have issues at the stages where it has not become a full-blown conflict to be able to speak up and engage, and then resolve. HR has, for a very long time been seen as the judge. I don't think part of the job that HR should do is to judge. Yes, we expect people who are matured to know how to handle issues. However, the parts where it begins to impact organizational, or business results, or the parts where it begins to, display negative impact on what brought us together, which is the job, that is where we need to set it right. And based on what Omoba mentioned earlier, there is need for us to always try and listen to what is not being said. It is important for us to, observe beyond the ordinary, to be able to bring out issues that would distract us from the focus, and then be able to address them before they become, very big. So I don't know if Dr. Oliami has any other addition to make to that.
No comments. Beautiful submission. I think Duru has comments on Chineye's question, and I think that will be the last comment we'll take, and then you wrap up. Chima Duru, please, you have the floor.
Okay.
Just to highlight something that might not have been said. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so Duru, let's hear you, please.
Okay, yeah. Good evening, Mr. Ijoma. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible. Yes. Right.
Okay, all right. Just to attend, I think there's a point where I picked something when Chine mentioned something about affirming to the person that she is in HR and the other person is in operations and they don't match. You see, most times, this person has been there possibly before you came in. And let's not take away the fact that the person might be seeing you already as a rival. So we should not eliminate that fact. What you can do, because I've had a similar thing, and the method I use in doing it is that, imagine coming in as a HR, and most of the tasks are being done by finance and account person. So, and I know that the person was not getting it right. I needed to do it. So I have to first make the person understand why this thing needs to change. So this is where you must have a collaboration. Why? Because as long as the HR aspects responsible for managing the organization, operation itself focuses on the day-to-day management and optimization of that same business operation, business processes. So there is a closer responsibility you both have. So when you begin to make the person feel, no, stay your own lane, let me stay my own lane. So she also wants to be on the attacking side. So what I'll just add to what everyone has said is that you should come in such a way that let there be an open communication, then have a shared objective. Sit with the person, like Omoba said, sit with the person and let the person understand, because this person must have been doing one or two tasks. I don't know if the person is a HR person before. He must have been doing one or two tasks relating to HR, but maybe not HR personnel. So let the person know why you are coming to take those roles. So it not look as if the person is your rival or people are fighting over something. All right, that's what I need to say. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much. That's spot on. I think that if we understand what brought us together, there'll be very little conflict. Most of what we looked at, some of the causes of conflict, it might be, we saw lack of proper communication. We saw that, if there are differences of perspectives, then the likelihood of conflict is high. So it's only when we sit together in a discussion that we'll be able to identify where the challenges are and understand, because there are some things that happen and it's clearly coming from a place of, lack of understanding. Oh, I didn't see it that way. So that meeting is very important for us to be able to dimension what the issues are. And then when going for that meeting, we'll go with an open mind the person who is, I mean, like the last speaker said, there's a possibility that that person was there before you. So the quality that you come with, you know, to which is what makes you the professional that you are, that person may not have, should also reflect in how you approach the matter, to the point that the person herself or himself is convinced that, oh, there's something she's saying, there's something he's saying that I really need to listen to. You know, so we talked about negotiations, we talked about it being a win-win situation. Win-win in the sense that instead I am able to make my, you know, influence you to change what you think, but not you feeling that you have been cheated, but you know, agreeing, accepting on the basis of superior argument. Oh, now I see it from the angle that you are seeing it, so I submit, I yield, you know, to you. I agree that yes, you were correct, I was wrong. So our inability to bring that out is perhaps what is making that conflict to linger, you know, for a longer than normal time. All right. Okay. I don't know if there are more contributions coming or more questions. Otherwise, I think it's a place to yield the virtual floor back to Dr. Liami for the closing formalities.
Thank you so much.
Once again,
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation, excellent slides, great contribution from the floor. Thank you to everyone who has contributed tonight, either through our voices, via the chat, or orally. Ladies and gentlemen, you know how we do it. At the end of it all, we want to be able to unmute and say thank you, show resounding appreciation and gratitude. Please, let's say thank you to Ijoma. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joma.
Thank you.
For that very impactful thoughts. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank
sir.
you.
God bless
Thank you, Dr. Oliemi.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you, ma. Thank you.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.